There is a lot to get through today on the show. For example, the Osun governorship election is more than a contest for the government house in Osogbo, coming less than a year before the 2027 general election. It offers Nigeria an opportunity to assess the strength of our electoral institutions, the preparedness of political parties, the effectiveness of election technology, and importantly, whether voters can have confidence that their votes will count. The stakes are particularly high. The contest pits the incumbent, Governor Ademola Adeleke, against APC candidate Bola Oyebamiji and other candidates, while the PDP and Labour Party are notably absent from INEC's final list of candidates. But the bigger question goes beyond who wins the election, actually. What will Osun tell us about 2027? Will INEC demonstrate that it can conduct an election that is transparent, credible, and technically sound? Can technology, particularly electronic transmission and result management, withstand political pressure and operational challenges? Will security agencies remain neutral and professional? And can political parties compete without violence, intimidation, vote buying, and the weaponization of state power? Joining us today is a lawyer, Justice Ojeno. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, Sato, and good afternoon to all our viewers all across the world. It's my pleasure.
It's very good to have you here. It's interesting that we have this off-cycle election just about 5 months to the general elections. If you were to gauge the temperature of things right now, what would you be reading?
Okay, I'm not in Osun State, but from my vantage point, maybe because of where I am and because of my profession, I've heard that there is so much hotness in that part of Nigeria, and of course, legitimately so. Contest for power is usually not as civil in other parts of Nigeria, but much more particularly so in Osun State. If we go back down memory street, we'll see that the penultimate election was very, very hot, and it was a runoff that was used to maybe steal the election from Mr. Adeleke at the time. And of course, the last one was beyond reasonable doubt. If we are using criminal standards of assessing who won, maybe that was why it could not have been stolen from him. So, and this again is a contest of, I just pray they don't bring Scott Earth kind of contest into this and destroy the state in the wake of political contestations for power. I just pray that as much as possible, the best man in this case is allowed to win. I don't have any dog in the fight. I just pray that whoever it is that emerges as a result of the legitimate votes of the Osun State people should be allowed to carry the day without anybody thumping the scale in any way.
So now, if you look at the situation in Osun State, and you rightfully judged the temperature there, and you took us back in time, but also taking you back in time, there were some local government elections in between that period as well, and we didn't quite like what we saw. There was political violence as a result, and you can still see that the rhetoric in this situation hasn't been pretty. What is the gauge on that? How will you say we need to get security agencies on top of the situation? How prepared do you think they are? And what is the impact for the general election?
Okay, I even think that beyond just local government elections, there were also a number of by-elections. And of course, there were state gubernatorial elections that have actually held under Mr. Joash Amopiton. And we cannot use a number of those elections as the yardstick to prove that, okay, will INEC do right by the Nigerian people? And I particularly point to the Anambra election and I think Ekiti State election, because it was very, very clear that the incumbents were very strong and they had some level of unanimity amongst the electorates, and it was a safe seat and safe election, essentially, in a manner of speaking, for them, with due respect to every other persons that contested with them in the elections. But the one that really, really would have shown how possible the 2027 elections would have gone was the area council elections in Abuja, the FCT. And the jury is out on that election, and the verdict of the jury is that it was not so much a credible election. And of course, the politician the Wike, he declared a curfew. He practically ensured that a lot didn't go well with that election. And with INEC too, there is nothing that proves to how credible they were too. So I pray that the eventual result of the Osun State election will also not be tainted by such accusations. And of course, there's no election that is perfect. The 2020 election in the United States is still being contested in a way, and it forms one of the first questions that the legislators will always ask, whether it's the Senate or the House of, the equivalent of the House of Reps. They will ask members of the Trump government, do you believe that we are in 2026? So it doesn't mean that there will not be people who will say that, oh, the election was not credible.
Let's look at the playing field.
Okay.
Now, because earlier when I was introducing the segment, I mentioned that a couple of political parties were absent from the ballot.
Okay.
The PDP, the Labour Party, don't have dogs in the fight, if you like. How significant is their absence in the grand scheme of things?
I think it is very, very significant. It's a shame. If we are saying we are practicing multi-party system, we should have viable political parties. The life that Accord has in Osun State is practically breathed into it, of course, like God in creation breathed into clay and became a human being. It's breathed into it by the present governor. Remove the governor from the scheme of things. With due respect, again, to everybody in Accord party, it's not exactly a viable party. So I would have loved it. At least, we can say the PDP, even though they were very, very arrogant to say that in the next half a century, they will last forever, essentially. And, of course, they caved in like it's a sand dune with the slightest resistance. Of course, the machinations of the present president and his cohort. But to an extent, it has become an institution, the PDP. Unfortunately, the greed of the people that are running it actually made it become essentially comatose. I always describe the situation of PDP as stage 4 cancer. It is irredeemable. The Labour Party too has started rising only for them to be dealing with so much infighting, wrangling. A lot of people amongst them were buyable, they were for sale. And so they sold the soul of the party to the point, to the detriment, significant detriment, and ashamedly so, of the democracy or the robustness of the democracy of Nigerians. I feel very, very pained that they are not in, and the democracy of its in, but for the power being summoned by the governor Adeleke, I do not even think there will be a contestation against the APC, which is the machination of the APC presidency from day one to take out 36 states for themselves.
You know, thank you for that point. But I want to bring your mind to something that has been a recurring theme in all the elections that have happened over the last few years in this country, and that's voter apathy, right? People don't show up. The numbers compared to registered voters who show up on election day is ridiculously low, to be honest.
Ridiculously
and
low.
there are many factors for that. Some people obviously don't trust in electoral institutions, but even that is the fear of political violence. And I really want to harp on that because people, especially leading up to the general elections in 2027, they're in January, they're just over 5 months away, people are scared. People are concerned for their safety, what will happen. As you've mentioned, a lot of people who go into these contestations are desperate for power.
Absolutely.
And so on. What is the significance of that? And how can we turn around the tide against voter apathy?
Oh, it's going to be hard if we are not using our tongue to count to counter it. If we are to frontally talk about it, it's going to be a very, very difficult one because all institutions of state that are supposed to encourage it have actually failed. They've dropped the bag gladly. And by that, I pointedly point to, no pun intended, the security agencies, the prosecution agencies. When a thug, in a manner of speaking, comes out and says, in a state like Lagos, that if a number of persons do not vote in a particular direction, that they will be dealt with severely. What happens? What was the Attorney General of Lagos State, for example, doing? Is that not intimidation? Is that not voter intimidation enough for someone to have been prosecuted in order to show deterrence to any set of persons who might be interested in towing that kind of line? What of security agencies? What are they doing to protect elections? They too, they are being bought off. Why do we have a situation where during elections we are having shopping for the particular commissioners of police for various states. Is that not showing you that these people, to a large extent, will not allow this to work? Should we now talk about INEC? Should we talk about the commissioners for INEC? Did you see the Edo State election? The last Edo State election and the kind of hula baloo that happened between who should be commissioner and how partisan an electoral commissioner should be? How many should we talk about? It is all a shame. And for a person in Nigeria, the average Nigerian, to say, oh, they want to still participate in spite and despite all these unsurmountable mountains that are put before the Nigerian people when it comes to exercising their franchise, you must really, really commend them. I commend them for coming out in their droves in 2023 and their participation before 2023. And I pray that they also surmount that level of courage to ensure that at least we do not let these politicians have their way. We don't throw our governments, we don't give them. Now they are succeeding themselves. They are putting their children every single way, all of them.
And I just want to harp on the point you made earlier about thugs threatening certain people during elections and so on, and the conversation around certain what should be pressure groups, for example, like the National Union of Road Transport Workers. Now some members are allegedly sided with certain political parties and certain political interests. What does that portend for the general election and the general state of things, really?
Okay,
things like that happen.
I feel that is a shame. Normally a trade union, but if you check their charter, in a manner of speaking, they are not supposed to, just like civil servants, they are not supposed to pitch their tents with any political parties, because the membership of the trade union generally will be from all political parties. Indeed. In a manner of speaking. And of course, a political party can pitch and make arguments to a union, for example, and tell them, oh, your members will get this, your members will get that, if you support us. And of course, it happens everywhere. It happens in the US and all too. And of course, when that happens, they will support, in a manner of speaking, but their support cannot go beyond the borders of just endorsing the political parties. These ones are going way beyond endorsing. They are practically beating up people at the polls. There's still a woman that has a bandage, whose picture still rings in my head, that has a bandage on her head in the past election and on the past election day. So when a trade union goes beyond that, starts beating up people, starts threatening the people in those unions that are the minds, controlling minds of such unions, should be prosecuted in order for that to stop. Because as it is, they are killing our democracy. And they, of course, they don't know that they are playing with fire. Because if this democracy goes, they will also have to go with it.
Justice, we are getting into an interesting territory here, especially with what's going on in Osun and how, like I mentioned earlier, how close this off-cycle election is to general elections. Do you believe that it is indeed a litmus test for what's going to happen in 2027?
Absolutely. Just like it was in 2023. Just like exactly as it was in 2023. One part that, as a legal practitioner, I was really, really affected by and I was scared for in the 2023 election was the decision of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal in the 2022 Osun election. And the decision of the court eventually in 2023 was what also affected the Peter Obi and the Tinubu article litigation. Because in that case, one soft strand that most Nigerians were not they didn't really avert their minds to was that in that election, the court actually said that expert witnesses are no longer needed. The way to prove who won an election at a polling unit is for you to tender the beavers machine. It was decided in that case. It was decided in that case. Before then, you could have just brought an expert witness over that analyze all the elections and all. Just bring one or two, examine them, cross-examine them, re-examine them if there is need for it. But that wasn't done. And this time, you now needed to bring beavers from every polling unit where you are contesting. We had more than 170-something thousand polling units in the last election. Just imagine that you are contesting 10% of it. It means you have to practically examine, cross-examine, re-examine 17,000 either witnesses or at least experts that dealt with such machines. And given the time frame for elections, it is practically humanly impossible. When I saw that decision, I was already scared for the litigation that was going to come, which eventually came, and unfortunately came. It looked to me like, oh, the president saw that, oh, let Osun lose so that we'll be able to win. Because we must remember that the president, beyond loving Lagos State the way he loves it, the rumor has it that he's also from Osun State. He has some solid affiliation, maybe whether maternal or paternal, to Osun State. So Osun State is clearly there to his mind. So the significance is practically almost unsurmountable when it came to that decision. And of course, how security behaves in this election will also determine how they will behave in the 2027 election. And I say this because, well, I'm very happy that at least the Inspector General of Police has been to Osun State to say that, to allay the affairs and say that they are for credible elections and they arrested some APC thugs. I just pray that the trajectory continues that way. Let it not be seen that the powers that be use all necessity to actually wrestle power from the present governor in Osun State. Let it be clear that it was not stolen, so that Nigerians will have some more level of confidence in the forthcoming 2027 election.
And you know, when you mentioned beavers, there all sorts of things went up in my head because we had the conversations about the electoral law and amendments, and like you mentioned, all the court cases that have been going on. Tell me an electronic transmission and what that means now for the average voter. Right, it's tough to keep track of all these conversations.
It is humongous.
The language is too sometimes you don't understand what's going on. We don't have the legal training. We don't know everything that you do in this case. Make it simple for us. What has changed?
Let me make it as simple as possible.
Yes.
This time it's optional for the electoral umpire or its representatives, the polling officers at the polling units. They have the option of transmitting it. Of course, they can come up with one excuse or the other, and that's what essentially changed, not from the previous law, but from the proposed law that almost scaled through until these people saw that, oh, they were going to lose en masse, and they decided to practically change the course of events and change the course of the law. And we must also note that on the polling unit issue, essentially, what the polling officer says is what the result is essentially what the result is. And we must also still go back beyond the Electoral Act. We must go back to the presumption of regularity provisions of our Evidence Act. And those are some of the things that some of us have been saying, that there must be a cutout for electoral matters. We cannot just say because INEC said this is the number, then the court will now presume that they are regular, that it is correct. The INEC must be made a neutral party. They cannot be given so much power to the point where it is now easy and casual for anybody to say, go to court, because they know that because the presumption is already in favor of the result given by INEC, it's going to be practically impossible. It's going to be like the task of Sisyphus to upturn whatever decision they went to court.
Indeed, and this is where I want us to get into how, despite all these things, people need to go to the polls. People need to vote in their numbers. How important is it that we galvanize people to the polls ahead of 2027?
It is of extreme importance. We can't let these people carry the day. Just like I was broaching earlier, they are already succeeding themselves. For a lot of them whose children, they have started finishing law school, they've started going to their 20s and 30s. They started putting them in the House of Representatives, putting them to head one agency or another. We cannot it is not their commonwealth. It is our entire commonwealth. It is not their right. We must fight for it. We must ensure that at no point will they let our apathy get to the point where we will now practically resign all our faith, all our destiny, all our commonwealth to this set of, I call them bandits. They are political bandits, because whatever it is that those other people are doing with terrorism, our politicians are even doing way worse. Because if they are not doing way worse, why is this country still like this on all fours? Just mentioning economy, security, and all. we are practically tanked as a nation. Our passport is losing its relevance every single day as we speak. So we cannot resign completely to them, because that is exactly what they want. They want to ensure that they push us down and down to the point where, because of apathy, we practically resign everything to them.
Justice, thank you very much. The passion is very obvious, and that's because the stakes for the elections are very high. It's important that we all ensure that we vote when the elections come in January. And I hope that everyone has their PVC at this point, because no more CVR. It'll be a shame if you didn't get it or get the process done. But Rubbing Minds returns after this.